You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Wednesday, January 1st, the first 49 Carats show of the year, but certainly not the last. And joining me for the first show of the year today is one of my favorite co-hosts, Rob Stats Guerrera. Rob, how you doing, man?
Steph, new year. It's a new me. I'm going to be super upbeat, super positive, never cranky. It's going to be a new Rob Guerrera this year.
How long is that going to last, you think?
It's already over. I'm back to being mad.
That was quick. But yeah, I was like, you don't do resolutions. I don't do resolutions. But if anyone in the live chat, you guys doing any resolutions, I'm curious to know what they are. So drop them in the chat, and shout out to everyone that's already in here wishing us a happy New Year's. Happy New Year's to you guys as well. Definitely appreciate all of you for tuning in. Hopefully you guys have the day off. If not, hopefully you're catching this on a lunch break or something like that. But we still got plenty more to talk about with this 49ers team. So let's get right into it. Rob, now I was kind of reminded about a quote that I heard from John Lynch last week when I saw his kind of like frustrated demeanor that they showed during the broadcast against the Lions, right? We got a couple of candid shots of him showing his frustration. I think that was the Red 47 that Glazer was talking about. Jay Glazer mentioned because he definitely looked angry. Now, last week he was on KNBR and he talked about vowing to fix the 49ers. Basically, they're looking at root causes of things, and you have the audio for us. So why don't you play that back?
It's not somewhere where we want to be again, but we're here this year. Can't believe we're here, but we are. And we have to accept that. We have to learn from it. We can't just chalk it up to, there were a lot of injuries. Well, the team we're playing, Detroit, they had a lot of injuries, but they found a way. And so we got to look at the root. We have been looking at the root causes. We'll fix it. We got a lot of great players and a lot of great people that we want to be a part of the solution moving forward. And we'll go find the other parts of our team to get us back to where we belong. And that's competing for championships. And I'm confident in our plan to do that.
Yeah, so that's just part of the quote of what he mentioned there. And as Ski in the comments says, 49ers New Year's resolution needs to be to fix this damn roster. I think we definitely agree, John Lynch included. And so I got to thinking, especially seeing his own reaction to some plays on Monday night, what are some ways that the 49ers can fix it, right? He talked about looking at root causes. I'm curious what he thinks the root causes are, but I do have some ideas for him. The 49ers currently rank in the bottom 5 in red zone defense, second half defense. In fact, they're dead last at that. Special teams DVOA and EPA. Kicker rankings, Jake Moody is in the bottom 5 in EPA per kick. They're in the bottom 10 of turnover margin. That goes on both the offense and the defense, right? And then, of course, third down defense as well. There's a lot of defense, and there's a decent number of special teams listed here, Rob. I feel like that's the low-hanging fruit of things it can fix this offseason.
Special teams is by far the lowest of the low-hanging fruit because they're not only the worst in the league, they're the worst in the league by a huge margin. Like, it's not even close. And one of the fastest ways to improve is to take the worst thing that you do and even just make it mid. And that's all they really need. Just be an average team on special teams. I mean, of course, I would love for them to have the best special teams in the league, but I'll settle for mid. Aim for the stars, so if you miss, you're still in the clouds or whatever the hell the expression is. That's number one. Fix it.
Well,
fire the special teams coordinator. Has to be done. Like, you can't do a worse job than Brian Schneider has done this year. And you could say, well, it's not all his fault. It doesn't matter. You need to fire him for the message that it sends to the people that remain with this organization, that if you don't get it done, we will find someone that will.
Yeah, and hasn't it kind of been Kyle Shanahan's thing of wanting the special teams to just be mid, to
Yep.
just be good enough, to just be average? I kind of feel like that line of thinking has gotten them to be as bad as they have been this year, because before you know it, if you just let people be average and you're okay with complacency, it's so easy to just like become gradually worse. And
Mhm.
that's what has happened with this 49ers special teams unit under Brian Schneider since Kyle Shanahan has been the head coach of this team. So, yeah, that to me is the biggest low hanging fruit of all. It needs a complete overhaul. I don't think it's a coincidence that Pat O'Donnell, who is the other punter that they brought in, in the offseason, which when Mitch Wisnowski was dealing with an injury, like in training camp, he was also really good. Like it's no coincidence to me that guys that they've brought in off the street have outperformed both Mitch Wisnowski and Jake Moody. That should serve as a message to this team. And another thing that's not really listed here, right? Like we talk about defense and special teams being an issue. I think you can look at Nick Sorensen, but one thing specifically that I think not really showing up as bottom ranks is the offensive line and even the defensive line. Like build up the trenches. That has to be a priority for this team. And I also thought it was pretty funny that Kyle Shanahan, when he was speaking about the Lions, leading up to that game, he lauded their offensive line, right? And how, they could pretty much do what they want and control the game because of how good their offensive line is. Well, Kyle, you can have that too if you just put your mind to it.
Right. It was like, well, so you see the benefits. So why haven't you gone out of your way to try and get that for yourself? And I really hope that they do. There is an expression, if you try to address everything, you address nothing, right? And if I had to pick only one thing for the 49ers to address, it wouldn't be the special teams. It would actually be the offensive line. It would be the run blocking on the offensive line, because I really do think that it has been such a struggle. And that is really where everything orbits around for this offense. If they can run the ball, then they can gash you with play action. It'll help the drop back passing game. It'll help keep the 49ers out of the straight drop back passing game, which is the weakest part of Kyle Shanahan's system. Please address the offensive line. And I don't want to see just hope. Well, I hope everybody's healthy. I want to see actual change. I want to see a new center. I want to see a new left guard. I want to see actual competition for Colton McKivitz at right tackle. If he wins the competition, great. But I'm tired of seeing these guys that we know are mid just get handed these jobs, no questions asked.
Yeah, that definitely has to be part of it too, because in a way, it's almost like holding themselves accountable to letting mediocrity slide, right? Like that just can't be a thing anymore, especially when you're looking to kind of not rebuild, but like retool this team and get back to where you were. Some guys who were part of the building up of this team, the brick by brick when you originally got here, some of those guys aren't going to be part of that. And it's the new retooling, and it's because they don't really deserve to be part of that anymore. Like their time is kind of over. So yeah, there's some long, hard looks in the mirror that need to happen, I think, with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Rob, my worry a little bit is that I could see a scenario in which John Lynch can see what the issues are, and Kyle Shanahan maybe not agree with some of them as much. Like that's kind of my concern. I guess this is kind of going to test the relationship that these two have and whether they do see eye to eye on what the root causes are. Because if, like, talking about the offensive line, right? I think Kyle Shanahan has been very clear on what his philosophy is, and not wanting to put too much into it and feeling like the scheme helps the offensive lineman and you could get by with, average guys because you have this great scheme. Well, I think we've seen that Kyle is stubborn. So I kind of worry that that could be to the detriment of this team and this retooling. I really hope not, but I think it is going to kind of test where they are as far as seeing eye to eye.
And here's the thing that, doesn't fill me with confidence. It would be one thing if you had an offensive line coach who, in the offseason or in the scouting room, the draft room, whatever, is pounding the table. You got to get me better guys, right? But what we heard from Chris Forster this year is he fully supports Kyle Shanahan. He said in his press conference, the Niners' philosophy is if you've got an offensive lineman you can draft here and a skill player you can draft here. Chris Forster said, I'd rather take the skill player and, try to build it up with the offensive lineman. So he's not going to be pounding the table like, hey, get me more guys. So who's going to be there to change Kyle's mind is the question. And maybe he has this epiphany. I don't know, but it doesn't seem, the safe assumption is that people are going to be who they are, right? They are who they are. People don't change generally. And if that's the case, then we're not going to get the thing that we're wishing for.
Yeah, I hope that that's not the case. And, Kyle kind of sees through some of his thinking, has been a little short-sighted. This comment, take the damn boombox entrance out. It needs to go. I actually was astonished to see that another team, the Jets, had a boombox entrance this past weekend. Yes, the Jets of all teams had the boombox entrance. I think they didn't score anything, or they were they shut out in that game against the Bills, or did they end up scoring at the end? In any case, it was a pitiful performance from them. And, quite frankly, the 49ers have been kind of pitiful themselves at times this year too. So boombox entrance needs to go in the new year. You got to earn that. You got to earn your right to party a little bit. And the 49ers certainly have not done that this year. So how about just get back to being the team that we all expect you to be, and then you can bring the boombox back out. But I'm liking some of these ideas you guys are throwing in here too. Tanisha says we need competition. We need the best players on the field, no matter how or where, frankly, they were drafted. I think that's a big thing. Roster politics, I know, play a huge thing, not just with the 49ers, but in every team in the NFL. And you have to know, though, when it's time for the roster politics to not really matter anymore and just get the best guys on the field. I do like the fact that, Kyle, when he was asked about Jake Moody after the game Monday night, he did say they are evaluating the position. And, that's kind of the thing they say all the time, John Lynch and Kyle. And I'm sure they're going to bring in some competition for a lot of different positions. But that's good. I feel like that's a step in the right direction at the very least, because that means we're thinking about moving on from this player.
How could you not be? First of all, from a confidence standpoint, you could tell in Jake Moody's his comments before the game that he was down, obviously, because he has really struggled since coming back from that ankle injury. And then in the game, he misses the 51-yarder. Why Kyle Shanahan thought it was a good idea to bring him back out for a 58-yarder was beyond me. And then the onside kick, he just kicks it straight out of bounds. He was not in a headspace at all. He's been getting booed by the crowd. I know Kyle talks about how talented Jake Moody is. When are we going to see it? Here's what I've seen. I've seen a guy that's shaky from 40-plus yards out. I've seen a guy shank 2 kickoffs where he couldn't even land the ball, in the landing zone. He did that twice in one game. I've seen him kick balls out of bounds. He can't kick it in the end zone consistently. Where is this talent that he keeps talking about? We've never seen it. We have never seen it. So, I get that a lot of times guys struggle and then they move on and they're good somewhere else. That's okay. Let him be good somewhere else, but we can't have him be bad in San Francisco anymore. And he has just been bad. And I've been a Jake Moody guy, but he's been bad.
I talked about this yesterday with Weston on the show, and, I can't help but think, and I feel like people are forgetting about this, that it was Brian Schneider who slammed the table for Jake Moody. And, they talked about all the, questions that they had for him, and they brought him in for the private workout and all that. And it almost made it seem like he was vetted highly through the draft process, and he passed all their tests with flying colors. So now I'm feeling like they were simply bamboozled. But at the same time, they themselves put it on themselves and Jake Moody to put all this pressure on him by drafting him in the 3rd round to begin with. That is just not, that's a recipe for failure. I mean, and they brought it onto him and themselves. And I can't feel bad that this is why kickers in the third round don't work out. It's just so much pressure for a position that's all about having the mental strength and the confidence to get it to go. If you have that much pressure, like, it's just not going to work out. So I hope they learn from their mistake and never do this again. Just get a guy from the street, like every other football player that you talk to. Richard Sherman said it too. Like, that's a position that you just get someone off the street. It does not matter. Like, why can't they see that? So hopefully they learn their lesson there. But Rob, oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I just had one more thing. It's weird to me that, like, why can't we scout kickers? It's the easiest thing in the world.
Don't scout kickers. You don't even need to scout kickers. Don't waste your time with that. Just sign a kicker.
But like,
That's
like, this is what I don't understand, right? Jake Moody in college made 82% of his kicks. Is that great? No, not really. Okay. We can see with kickers. Do they kick the ball? How far away do they kick it from? How accurate are they? It's a pass-fail business, right? It's not like, well, a quarterback racked up a bunch of yards, but they were all on screen passes. No, we can see the kicks and how far away they are. As long as they go in, who cares how they look? Like, it should not be this difficult. And they just whiffed on this. They whiffed on it big time. And I think it's a symptom of a larger thing, Steph. And I talked about this a lot. I think that they shifted their philosophy from, at first it was just build the team. Just get the best players. Let's get talent. Let's build the team. And then it was, holy crap, we made a Super Bowl in 2019. Now we're going to stop that. And instead, we're going to try and put the cherry on top of the sundae and just get the final piece, right? They moved from team building mode to trying to get over the hump. And I think it screwed with their scouting. I think it messed with how they evaluated players because they kept trying to just get the final piece. Just get this. They drafted a kicker in the third round because they said, we don't have any other needs. And it was like, that's not a good philosophy. And I hope they get back to just get as much talent as possible.
Especially for a team that pissed away like 3 first-round picks for a quarterback that ended up not working out. Like, we're seeing the effects of that now as well, on top of what you just mentioned. And I do agree. I do also think that it's almost like they knew whatever rookie they brought in wasn't going to have any opportunity to play for them or wasn't going to start, realistically. So they weren't drafting startable players. They were taking shots on guys who maybe could become something in a few years. And that just didn't make sense because none of those guys ended up panning out. Like, and it's just really frustrating. Thankfully, 2024 draft was a really good one, but I think it's because they did kind of go back to the team building sort of draft mode that they had been before. So we just need another one of those.
Please. Like, the fact that this draft class that they had, it looks so solid, is so encouraging because it's like, all right, it's in there. And it wasn't just Adam Peters or Martin Mayhew or any of the brain drain, essentially, that they have lost from the front office. Like, no, the guys that are here just had a great draft. So that is encouraging for 2025.
Yeah, it sure is. The one positive I think we can draw, and there might be like a few positives, but one from the 49ers being last in the NFC West now is the fact that they got an easy schedule. We know there's opponents for 2025, and that is, of course, the NFC West. At home, they're going to face the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, Chicago Bears. Like, that is a dream home schedule. And then away, you got the NFC West again, the Saints, the Bucks, the Texans, the Colts, the Giants, the Browns. Like, there's no excuse for 2025. And I understand that 2024, I think even when the schedule came out, we were like, man, like, we got the short end of the stick here because this schedule sucks and is going to be tough. But man, there's no excuse for 2025. I'm looking at this, Rob, and I'm like, dude, if you can get back to fixing some of the things that, John was maybe talking about. I know he didn't go into specifics, but if they could just fix some of the few things, right? they can really get back into it in 2025 and be a strong team again. I would almost say, should they be going all in for 2025, just looking at how this schedule looks?
Well, first and foremost, I agree with you. The teams that are on there do not look very strong right now. Things can change, but in general, it looks like a good schedule for the Niners. But none of that matters if they can't beat the teams in their division. You have to be able to beat the teams in your division because you play the most games. You know, it's 6 games. Those are the teams that know you the best. And that's your easiest path to the playoffs, is winning your division. You can win your division with 7 wins. It doesn't matter. You still get into the playoffs. You have to be able to handle your business in the NFC West, and the Niners have not done that this year. It's been incredibly frustrating. So even though the other teams look beatable and winnable, and yay, that's great, the biggest challenge is going to be the 2 games against Seattle, the Rams, and the Cardinals. And the Niners can sit here and say, yeah, well, we should have won those games. Well, you freaking didn't. And I'm really tired about hearing about what this team should have done. I don't give a shit what you should have done. That doesn't get me anything. Should doesn't put the trophies in the trophy case. It doesn't get you into the playoffs this year, all right? So go and do. I'm going Yoda on you. Do or do not. There is no try. There is no should. Figure it out, and it has to start with the division. The Rams look good, and I think the Rams are only going to get better. I think their defense is really good. Now, there is a question with Stafford. Who knows if he retires? I have no idea, and that would obviously impact them in a huge, huge way. But I have faith that Sean McVay will have a backup plan at quarterback, regardless of what it is. So, I mean, hell, maybe they sign Zach Wilson in the offseason and
maybe they sign Sam Darnold.
Maybe, like, honestly, yeah. So, like, I don't
That would
think
be crazy.
the Rams are not going away. Seattle, you should beat Seattle. Geno Smith is not it. Like, everyone likes to tout him as this big, like, oh, reclamation. Look how good. It's like they miss the playoffs almost all the time with Geno Smith. He's basically a 500 quarterback since they got there, so they don't scare me. And then Arizona, who knows what the hell Arizona is going to do? I think they're well coached. I just don't think their roster is quite ready yet. So there's opportunity in the division.
Yeah, there definitely is. And I do agree with you. Like, that is first and foremost the priority for this team. You also always have to be looking at how you beat the teams in your own division. Like, that matters more than anything else in this schedule here for next season. But it looks, for the most part, easy and manageable for the 49ers. So again, if they could just get back to looking better than they did this year, it doesn't even need to be as dominant as 2023 to, I think, have a winning, record with this schedule, right? So, and as Leonardo says here, the Super Bowl is in Levi Stadium next season. So you're kind of playing for pride a little bit as well, which is why I wouldn't be mad if they try to go all in on 2025 if it kind of works out that way. If you have a strong draft class, if you're able to get a good free agency period going, I think, why not, right? You got to at least try and make sure someone else doesn't win it in your own stadium. But I just wanted to take a look at the 49ers this season schedule. Let me just reload this really quick because, like I said, it is the toughest schedule of any team this season based on strength of schedule, based on all the opponents they faced through 17 weeks of the season. Combined opponent win percentage was 0.566, which is the toughest. And obviously you see how that kind of impacted some of the teams that have also ended up playing some tough teams as well. Some bad teams, Bears, Giants, Raiders, Browns.
And the Niners have the worst rest differential. They have
I know
21-day rest differential for the second year in a row, by the way. So yeah, the schedule makers did not do the Niners any favors in 2024.
When that came out too, like the schedule, I definitely didn't want to think that was going to be something that affected them, but I think it did, along with everything else. I think this season was just an accumulation of a lot of things that, clearly did not go their way. That's not to make any excuses. I just think there was just a lot against them this season. So hopefully in 2025, so far, it looks like it'll be a little more favorable. So that's a good thing. But Rob, let's talk about this game against the Cardinals. I think we got the report that James Conner isn't going to be playing for the Cardinals in this game. So it's final game of the season. They're also not playing for anything. So anyone that's like slightly hurt, you're like, yeah, let's just sit them out. The 49ers, most likely going to be playing without Brock Purdy as well in this game because of the elbow injury. And so what quarterback do we see play for the 49ers on Sunday? Is it going to be Josh Dobbs, or Brandon Allen? We saw Dobbs as the QB2 last week, and he actually did play a few final snaps in that game. Mostly, Kyle Shanahan said, because of the offensive line situation and how you're pretty much down to your third, fourth stringers on the left side of the line. Well, it's going to be the same thing in week 18. So I would imagine they continue rolling with Dobbs here. And it's not a bad thing for, I don't know, this team to see what he can do, other teams to see what he can do, because he's going to be a free agent after this year. And I think he's an exciting player, definitely more exciting than Brandon Allen.
Yeah, first of all, this was the Josh Dobbs special, right? This is what he does. Come in, no notice, you're in the game. He comes in and he plays well, and the Niners scored on that possession. I don't get Kyle Shanahan's obsession with Brandon Allen. I really do think that Kyle has he has a blind spot with quarterbacks. The way he evaluates them and what he values from them seems to be very different than what everybody else looks at and values in a quarterback. Like, no one else is going to be this attached to Brandon Allen. I don't get it. Like, I really don't. But it does scare me a little bit because it always seems like he looks for good enough from quarterbacks. He doesn't look for great. He looks for a quarterback that's tall enough to ride the bumper cars. And that ain't it, man. You should never do that with any position. That should never be how you evaluate. Well, let me just get a guy that's good enough. No, get the best freaking guy you can get. And Brandon Allen ain't it. I want to see Josh Dobbs just from a pure entertainment standpoint. It'll be more fun watching the game if the pass turnout is in there.
It's just the fact that Kyle wants a quarterback to do exactly as they're told, because the scheme is perfect and I called the perfect play for you. Don't steer away from it. And we know that Dobbs is kind of a creator in himself, right? Like he will create with his legs. He will create time for himself in the pocket. And he'll go off script, which I think is like the strength of Dobbs, right? That's the exciting thing about it. And he's still able to make a positive play out of it. But Kyle doesn't care about that. If the quarterback is off script but makes a positive play, there'll be a part of Kyle that is angry because it didn't go right on script. He wants someone to follow the script to a T, and that's just not Dobbs. And that's why the quarterbacks that he typically tends to like are the ones that are like pocket passers that stick to the script and don't question him all too much.
I think what he does is he kind of writes off those sort of improvised plays because in his mind, they're unsustainable. And I agree, like, if that's all you do, if that's the only way you move the ball, I completely agree with Kyle Shanahan. You can't rely on that every single down in and down out. You will fail. We have seen it. The history of the NFL has proven that. But you can't just totally discount it either. Like, that's the part that's frustrating. It's like, sometimes stuff doesn't go according to plan in the NFL, and it's a pass-fail business. Do you make the play? Do you not? Yeah, you might sit there and say, hey, he made this incredible play. That's not sustainable against us. Great, but he only needed to make it once for it to count. And so, again, I wish Kyle would change his thinking. I don't think he's going to. So I think there is a good chance that Brandon Allen at least gets heavy consideration this week to start.
Ugh. God. I mean, he started over Dobbs when he had some like injury on his finger, right? Like
broken finger in his other thumb.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like I said, both of those quarterbacks are going to be free agents after the season. So it'll be interesting how the 49ers kind of retool the quarterback room after this year, who's going to be QB2 and whatnot. There's definitely going to be some chatter around that. As always, 49ers make the quarterback position more interesting than it needs to be. But Rob, let me ask you this. Are you hoping that the 49ers win? Because obviously, like, the Cardinals are a very, I think, beatable team right now. Two bad teams. I know they bested the 49ers earlier in the season. Definitely a game that they could have won as well. But they didn't. So are you now rooting for the 49ers to lose for better draft position?
No, I'm not. And by the way, Steph, I just saw a tweet from Ian Rappaport, which if you share it, Josh Dobbs is the confirmed starter.
Woo, there we go.
Just came
Breaking news.
So it is DePastronaut. That is good. No, I'm not rooting for them to lose. I'm sorry. Like, I've seen this team have high draft picks and blow it. Like, do we remember Solomon Thomas? They had the number 2 pick that year. They traded down to 3, and they took Solomon Thomas. Great guy, average football player. Like, I'm not going to, like, this is the last time I get to watch this team play for a long time. And as frustrating as this year has been, seeing my team play football is better than not. In the offseason, what do? We spend the entire offseason just wishing they would get back to playing football. I'm going to see them play football on Sunday. They might as well win. I had fun watching the game on Monday night. When they came out and they were dicing up the Lions, I had fun. I want to have fun again. Give me one more win. I'm not rooting for them to lose.
All right, I get it. Like, I think it was really good to see some semblance of a good team against the Lions. It was good to see a fight from this team. But I'm happy with that. I'm happy with what I saw on Monday night, because to me it just showed that something is still there. I don't need to see it again, however. And I am kind of rooting for the 49ers to lose. I think they win, but I want the better draft pick. It's more exciting as a fan, and better chances, I think, if the 49ers, pick the right way. I think you made a great, example there, talking about Solomon Thomas and just some other whiffs that they've had. Kinlaw's another one, right? But there's just a better chance, I think, that you actually get a impactful player. Tyler Warren, Penn State tight end, looked pretty great last night, and I know that feels like a luxury pick, but I would not be mad. I would not be mad at it. Let's just say that. Right now, as it stands, the 49ers have the 11th pick in the NFL draft. That is, of course, before Week 18. The way that Week 18 goes could change a lot of things. As of right now, though, they can't get any lower than pick 11. So 11th is the best they can do as far as draft pick. Now, the other draft pick clinching scenarios, of course, if they lose, they basically clinch that pick 11. If they win, there are a couple of different things that could happen. So if you're rooting for the 49ers to win, they could still end up with pick 12, which is still not so bad. So I guess we could root for that. So 49ers, if they beat the Cardinals, if the Cowboys beat the Commanders, if the Colts beat the Jags, then the 49ers could get pick 12. Pick 13, there's a lot of scenarios that could happen. If the 49ers beat the Cardinals, Cowboys beat the Commanders, Colts lose to Jags, they can get pick 13. Or if the 49ers beat the Cardinals, Cowboys lose to Commanders, which I think is the more likely scenario, and the Colts beat or tie the Jags, then they could get pick 13. I'm feeling like that's the most likely scenario coming out of this weekend. Like, I think the Cowboys do lose to the Commanders. Colts and Jags, it's a toss-up. Those are two, like, struggling teams right now. I could see either happening, the Colts losing or the Colts winning. So I feel like pick 13 maybe the most likely. And you also have pick 14 if the 49ers beat the Cardinals, if the Cowboys lose, and if the Colts lose to the Jags. I just don't want them sliding like from 11 all the way to 14. I can live with 12, but I just want 11. It's more exciting to me.
Right outside the top 10. If they did want to move into the top 10, you certainly would think they'd have an easier job at 11, whereas if they're at 14, now you're sort of almost in the middle of the first round. It's going to cost you more if they did want to move up. But again, I want to see the Niners win. I know the draft, I get all that. I just want to see my team win. I'll worry about the draft in April. They could just as easily pick a crappy player at 11 as they could at 12. So give me a win, damn it. I want to win. I'm sorry, I do.
What do you guys in the comments think? Like, do you guys want the 49ers to win just to feel something again? Or are you okay with the 49ers losing for a better draft pick? I want to know your guys' thoughts. Stovey says 14 would suck. You would be reaching on most players in end of the round. And then also, like, usually when you're in the middle like that, yeah, like you're not getting the cream of the crop, and you're also probably thinking about moving back too. So that's a possibility if they end up with 14. Steve-O says 12th. I can live with 12 too. And that's, I think, maybe the best case scenario, even for you, Rob. Like, if you get to see your team win, but they still get a pretty decent draft pick in it.
Exactly. And that's fine too. Like, please give me that. I want the best of both. I'm done settling.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. It's definitely going to be a mid-off, I think, against the 49ers and the Cardinals. But if the 49ers played like they did against the Lions, then they should have no problem putting the Cardinals away. It's just a matter of which version of this 49ers team do we see show up, and do the inevitable, like, fourth quarter, second half failures in everything that falls apart. Are we going to see that again for this team? That's what we don't want to see, because it's been the thing that's reared its ugly head for them all season. They just haven't been able to finish games. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. Part of me is happy that it's over, because then I can look forward to a clean slate in 2025. But man, I'm going to miss this team, playing football. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's going to be changes on this team. It's a shame that this core group did not get it done, but that's their own fault. And so now they're going to have to change it. And I think we're all at the point now where, like you were just talking with the boombox, like this boombox era, it's over. It is over. It has to change. It needs to change. And hopefully it does for 2025.
And hopefully the Cabo click is over too.
Yes. Get out of here, Kyle Juszczyk. God, please go away.
Well, I'm just saying, like, no vacationing, like, together. I mean, maybe a few of them, but I don't want to see like a whole bunch of them vacationing together. I don't know. It just did feel like very little clicky. And some of those guys, their time is kind of.
I never liked it. I never liked the idea that there's a special group of players that were buddy with Kyle Shanahan. I never thought that was good. By the way, Steph, before we go, I should want to mention congratulations to Mooney Ward. He welcomed a son on Saturday, Charvarius Jr. Everybody's happy.
That is great.
Out. That is awesome, considering everything that they have gone through. So some good news for Mooney Ward and for the 49ers locker room that has endured a lot of tragedy this season.
No kidding. That is great news. And I thank you for bringing that up now, because I feel like that's a great place to end this show on a positive, good note. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a happy new year. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. For now, folks, have a good rest of your Wednesday. I'll be back on tomorrow with Trash Talk Thursday. So tune into that. For now, peace.